Good Shabbos, good morning. It is great to see everybody. We are in the garden room, so it's, all light, very, very wonderful. But the real light of the moment is that that our friend Jack Blumenbrook decided he should spend his 80th birthday with us. So I'm not going to slip him up to the ark, but I think that the owl will follow me over here, right? Yep. So the owl's going to follow me over here. Jack, I can't resist. So here we go. Hold my hand. Just hold my hand. Here we go. Me Chevrah Torah, the one who blessed our mothers and fathers before us, bring blessing upon one whose very presence continues to bring such blessing to us as he celebrates a L'chaim, 80 years of purposeful living. As you, Jack, long ago embraced this community led by your daughter. With such commitment, caring for others, a dedication exceeded only by your devoted care. From Midnight Run to my sister's place and beyond, bringing light to dark places, so may you know the light you ever are in our lives. As you have embraced Jewish learning, a stalwart at this Chevrah Torah table, infusing our search with sacred struggle, ever ready to share your question, and so to spark ours as well. So may you know, Jack, you always remain our teacher. And as your outreaching spirit, your neshama, ever open, ever giving, has not alone connected you to this LT community, but helped us build the Mishkan, a space for the Holy One to dwell. So may you know the spirit of God's blessing radiating, thanks to your presence being part of this space. God's presence is that much more real. Knowing how fortunate we feel, may the blessings you bring be exceeded, Jack, by those you receive with wholeness, strength of spirit, and peace of mind are given. As with God's goodness, we come together in celebration of you, with love ever filling your heart. Amen. Amen. What? And whenever Jack comes, there's more pastry, so there's always a plus. Always a plus. It is a gift, listen, for us, Chevrah Torah is a family. And it radiates from the connections we share and the care we give. And, Jack has given us immense care. Not so many years ago, I would find Jack in the hallways collecting the coats for the Midnight Run. And I once said to Jack, "What do you do with that coat?" He said, "This is not good enough." And I said, "What do you mean it's not good enough?" He said, "It's got a hole here." He said, "This is not good enough." So Jack was also the discerning judge of people who may have been without a coat, but you're not going to give them a fakakta coat. You want to give them a good coat, right? So to say Jack was not judgmental, that would not be true. Anyway, we have great Torah to study. Thrilled you are here. We got we got a B'nai Mitzvah online. We have 13 online. Did we do the blessing? No. Yeah. But we are going to share with me in the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Amen.
That's why we're going to mute everybody online for the moment, but you can always unmute if you need to. Yeah, good luck in finding a handout. I don't know if we have, you may have to share. You can share with somebody. You can say close to somebody. No, you have it. Okay. The gift of this week's Torah is that it is the last portion in the book of Exodus. It builds on last week, but if you weren't here last week, you will not be punished in any way. You will get it. Because this week's Chevrah is Pikudei. It really is about the Mishkan, which was part of the last week, and then a few weeks before that. And it's a koshi I've never done before. So it is how does creating the Mishkan mirror God's creation, and what does the Mishkan's completion help us understand about recreating our world? I'm gonna go heavy into Midrash and then into modern Midrash as we try to understand that. And then you'll understand why at the end of the book, we get to, when we finish Chevrah today, say something very special as a group together, celebrating the end of the book. We'll explain that later. So we're gonna read, I'm gonna go right around the circle. I'm just taking really the end of chapter 39. You remember that we start in Parshat Teruma, Exodus 25, where God says, make me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among you. And then here's what I need for the sanctuary. And then somebody says, where did they get dolphin skin? I don't care. I don't know. Don't ask me that. Okay? We don't know. We have no clue. But then we get it reiterated again in Ki Tisa, golden calf, Vayakel, they do the building, they make all the stuff, I should say. Then this is the ultimate moment when all the stuff is gathered. Watch what happens. Michael.
Thus was completed all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. The Israelites did so, just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so they did. Then they brought the tabernacle to Moses with the tent and all its furnishings, its clasps, its planks, its bars, its posts, and its sockets, covering of tan ram skins, the covering of dolphin skins, and the curtain for the screen, the ark of the pact and its poles, and the cover, the table and all its utensils, and the bread of display, the pure lampstand, its lamps in due order, and all its fittings, and the oil for lighting, the altar of God, of gold, the oil for anointing, the aromatic incense, and the screen for the entrance of the tent, the copper altar with its copper grating, its bowls, and all its utensils, and the laver and its stand, the hangings of the enclosure, its posts and its sockets, the screen for the gate of the enclosure, its cords and its pegs, all the furnishings for the service of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, the service vestments for officiating in the sanctuary, the sacred vestments of Aaron the priest, and the vestments of his son for priestly service. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the Israelites had done all the work. When Moses saw that they had performed all the tasks as the Lord had commanded, so they had done, Moses blessed them.
So this is the setup for the big question. So they bring all the stuff, and it's a pretty full list. It could go deeper, by the way. You remember last week we may have ended with a midrash I wrote, I don't know, 20 years ago, a modern midrash that I imagined a 12-year-old kid making the courtyard tent pegs. And Moses finding him after everybody had gone home and saying, "What are you doing, son? What are you doing?" And he says, "Moses, I'm making the courtyard tent pegs. I'm just shining them." And he says, "Don't you know those are going to go in the ground? Nobody's going to see them." And he says, "But if they're for the tabernacle, shouldn't they shine?" So Moses gets all the stuff. Everybody has done it with great pride. And what doesn't Moses do at this moment? He doesn't put it together. Moses blesses them. So the rabbis are going to read into that. They're going to read into that. And the last, there's no, time sequence in Torah. In a few portions, when they set up everything for the first ever sacrifice, and they put everything out right on the altar, Aaron and Moses wait, and nothing happens. So what does Aaron do? He blesses the people. So you could say blessing is a great stall tactic, right? That could be part of it. What do you notice about this description before we get into the question of why Moses blesses and what Moses doesn't do, which is why doesn't he put it together? What is anything that stands out to you here?
One thing that stands out is the pure lampstand.
Okay.
Menorah HaTorah.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
Exactly what you think, right? It's a pure lampstand. And first of all, it sounds much better in Hebrew. By the way, I appreciate the Hebrew. Menorah HaTorah. So the Bible is poetry. So it's the pure lampstand. It shines forth light. It is not a Chanukiah. A menorah is 7 branches, right? 7 branches. Why 7? I remember Rabbi Polar doing this. It's probably the only time he ever did an illustration. And he actually drew a circle. Then he cut the circle in half. And then he did 7 branches in the circle, right? In half of the circle. And he said, what's missing? I said, the other half of the circle. He said, exactly. He said, because this completes creation. So why 7? 7 days of creation. 7 lights in the Mishkan. So you're getting exactly to the Koshi, you had no idea. Clarence.
Red, I don't think they had it.
Right, so, yeah, the whole thing is anachronistic because this is being written when they've already established, we think, the temple. So they have a temple, but it's mirroring what they're doing in the temple, not a question. And by the way, it's a whole nother drash, lechem hapanim, showbread. And, you know, what is showbread? Whole nother question, we don't know, but it's part of all this stuff. Jay.
This reminds me of, or makes me think of, this is a community building project. Because not only are they building something physical, but they're building a community very much as people did in the West when they did barn buildings. Because everybody's coming together and working on a project together.
Yes.
They're building your community as well as something.
So what you're noticing is everybody's doing something, it seems like. There's a lot of contributions that go into Gesund, that go into this building process, and it's building more than the building. Dave.
There are 2 altars, it says the altar of gold, and then it says the capital.
Yeah, you got a couple of altars. You know, for different, right? You have the incense. There's a lot of pieces that go into making this Mishkan.
It reads like a novel of manners, like a Jane Austen thing, where
Yeah.
they go and they prepare for the dinner party, and the fork goes here, and this goes there, and this is that. There's so many things happening, but it's not about the fork. It's not about the pan.
That's right. So somehow, I love that. It's Jane Austen-esque. Please, I forget your name. I know you're from Michigan. I'm sorry. Yeah. How can I forget your name? Yeah.
I see this kind of like a, we're supposed to believe in this God that we can't see, we're not supposed to sacrifice to the God, but the people are saying, we're not really ready for that, we want it to thousands of people in the past. So this is, maybe like a stepping stone for the people who need to die off.
Yes.
So they have some buy-in and feel like they are maybe a little bit, it's still in like the old kind of worship.
Yeah, I mean, these are not idols, but this is all the really cool stuff we created that you can see, right? So that altar is gonna shine, right? Just like an idol, but it's not an idol. But so I totally agree. So what's happening here? They're giving it all to Moses. It says 3 times, just as the Lord commanded Moses. Cain asu, so they did, plural. So there's this underscoring of, as my teacher, Professor Fox, Everett Fox will point out, right? These are echo words for us. Cain asu, so they did. So the people create this whole, all these accoutrements, all the stuff they need. And they bring it to Moses, and Moses says, right at the end, he sees, Vayar Moshe, I'm in verse 43. Vayar Moshe, Kol HaMalacha, malacha is a code word, V'hinei asu, that they did. Ota, Kasher Tzivah Adonai Kain asu, just as God commanded, Adonai commanded, so they did. And then the key, Vayivarech Otam Moshe. We actually did a few years ago, what was Moses' blessing? Because that's missing from the text. There is no blessing. It just says, and Moses blessed them. With what? So no words, but the fact that Moses blesses them and does not put the altar together, does not put the Mishkan together, is very telling. So I know it's early, but I'm gonna jump, I'm about 4 minutes early, I'm gonna jump into the commentary because I want you to see, and we're gonna go extensive into some commentary. I want you to see how the rabbis understand this and why this is a parallel for creation, the creation of the world. Like in Genesis chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2. So take a look. So Umberto Cassuto, great Italian commentator, early 20th century, makes the case, or starts to make the case, as Robert Alter Pro said.
As Umberto Cassuto and others have noted, this passage that summarizes the completion of the tabernacle echoes the report of God's completion of creation. One should recall that the Hebrew for tabernacle, Mishkan, means God's dwelling place in the midst of the people Israel. Human effort adhering to divine direction emulates the Creator by applying human craft to build God's harmonious, beautiful, intricately constructed dwelling place on earth.
Right, so Alter is drawing on what Cassuto said, which is, yeah, the people are building God this beautiful place to dwell on earth. It's gorgeous, it's shining, has all these special features, has everything just as great, right? So the question that you have to think is, does God need this place? Is this for God? Really?
Well, it's kind of interesting that God's building us a world in creation, and then here that we're building a world for him.
Yeah, Lisa did not even read ahead, but in a minute, right, a great commentator, as is Lisa, right, is gonna say the same thing. Elaine.
I can't help thinking about, the fact that clearly they felt that beauty and being inside beauty, or the presence of beauty, is going to have in itself an effect on behavior. It reminded me of the beautiful city movement that took place in America 40, 50 years ago, where architects were convinced that creating beautiful parks and buildings would really influence good civic behavior. And it's not unlike this in a way.
Right, so civic behavior, sacred behavior, maybe. And is the building, I don't want to call out Ellis, but Ellis and I have had conversations, many, but one we had was about, and I share with him the feeling, right? Do you need to build an ornate church for Jesus to want to come? Do you need to build this giant temple Emmanuel? Because, you know, as I kid, if God lives any place, God lives on Fifth Avenue in New York City at Temple Emmanuel. Come on. First, that's a great address. But beyond that, oh my God, that is like, it's like you feel dwarfed by the presence. But is that really the presence? I don't know, Mike.
I mean, I was just gonna say, and look, it's, you know, recognizing that I'm looking at this through 21st century eyes, but I mean, the list of stuff is pretty unremarkable. I mean, it's just a lot of detail that we would otherwise not even focus on, like pegs and poles. And so, you know, it's not to me conjuring up, you know.
Grandiosity.
Grandiose and all that.
Yeah, it does sound, there's a pragmatic function here, Clarence.
But I think that's to me, the insight about what goes into creation.
Ah.
There's so many things that are beyond our human understanding, and they may look small, but every single thing is required.
Beautiful. So now you just, let me just quickly, so you just set me up, right? Go ahead, Carol, read the Tanhuma, but it's actually the Turks as well. Go ahead.
Regarding the creation of the world on the seventh day, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished. And regarding the Mishkan, it says, and all the work was finished. Creation was God making space for people. The Mishkan was people making space for God.
Thank you. Yes. So there's something about, you know, the act of creation, as Clarence, you know, just commented, right? And that is not grand in stature, but grand maybe in what it may grow into becoming. Steve.
So what I see is that they're gonna be carrying this for God knows how long. And everybody has a vested interest in this. And if something falls off or gets tarnished, I see the person who took care of it really getting involved, making sure it gets back in its place. So it's an active.
I love that.
It's not just building one thing and you're done. It's an active participation in not just
Love that. So everybody has a little bit of an interest in this. They feel connected to it. And remember, where does it get carried? In the middle. All the tribes, marching orders, they march around it, equidistant, they all can see it. Zeb.
So they never found the tabernacle. So stone,
Right,
but they built the temple in Jerusalem.
right,
That's the temple.
right. So, yeah, they could not let go of it. Very interesting. They could not let go of it. They wanted to build that perfect structure that was divinely ordained somehow, right, Mike?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, to Clarence's point, sort of about, the indispensability of everything, there's another way of looking at it, which is, a place for everything in its place, great chain of being, which is maybe a little bit less sort of democratic and egalitarian, like, this is where you fit in.
Yeah, so it could very well be that they're building a model, right, for the society they may create, right? Else.
I was gonna say, this is clearly there's a connection between one of the New Testament stories of the gift of the Magi, where everybody brings all of this incredible stuff, and then you have the girl who brings what she has. Bring to me what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that desire to not to show off, and I would assume that when these lists are being made, that the people are aware of what people have. And they say, okay, we're going to ask you for what you have, not for what you don't have.
Right.
And
right.
I kind of think of it as sort of like, stone soup.
Yeah, stone soup. Yeah. No, I love it. And I think I would underscore that to say that people who didn't have anything or didn't have much, they could still do the work or the craft, so there was something for virtually everybody to do based on the giving of beyond their means, their heart had.
So I have a little different view of this. My first reaction was that this is an inventory. Maybe I'm thinking of moving, I don't know. This is an inventory of all the stuff here, so why do you create an inventory? Now, this is maybe a little more down to earth view, so that no one will steal the stuff. So what happens? The Romans steal. It's on the Arch of Titus.
On the Arch of Titus,
So
and that's
something that
and what do they take?
they take the
Menorah HaTehorah.
and the showbread.
Yeah, the showbread.
There's something that gets transmuted here in a way that changes into symbols.
Yeah.
And we do have, it's an extraordinary thing in a way. We do have this inventory and it does show up, and we were there, Dan.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, the Romans took it to say, we got the goods.
Right.
We got the goods.
They stole.
Right, class.
God knew.
And to the point of inventory, it seems like there's an accounting that appears to be related to sacredness.
Yeah,
So there's a use of what everyone has.
yes,
And it has to be recognized and accounted for, and nothing perhaps lost.
you need all the parts to make the whole. Nothing can be lost. And the irony here is that most.
Everyone's contribution, so for a whole purpose.
Yes. Remember what it says, in, what does it say, in 39 someplace, or maybe it's 40, Vayihi HaMishkan Echad. I quoted it last week in that little midrash that and it so happened, and it was that the tabernacle was Echad, one. And so right now, the tabernacle is a whole bunch of stuff, right? That's sitting, in the desert on these giant, tarps or whatever, or maybe just on the floor. And Moses is looking at it and saying, wow, they really did it. Boy.
Following up on what Gail said, Rabbi Schiff said a few weeks ago, this space for God, this physical space we're talking about. Rabbi Schiff, maybe the space has got to be in us rather than physical space.
Yeah, so what does that, as Jane intimated, what does the building process create? What is it we're actually building? Is it a space for God to dwell in the world or someplace else? So now, the next one you don't need, it's so they did. But I'm just gonna point out, that the language of this text, from the beginning of it, the first word is Vatechel kol avodah mishkan al moed. You know, thus was completed all the work. The verb is not a usual verb. It's the same verb at the beginning of, excuse me, right after creation, right? With the seventh day of creation, what's the Hebrew? Vayafulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzava'am. See, it's the same verb. In the heaven and the earth were finished. And so we're finished the works of creation. So the difference is, God put it all together as God created it. Moses had all the parts. So now we go into a little bit of the rabbinic mind. Yeah, Tom.
So I'm still stuck on, how Moses was blessed anything that he didn't know was all there.
Well, yeah, it seems as if, because he gave the orders for the inventory beforehand, he gave the list, so maybe he knew it was all there. What didn't he know is the question. So, then they brought the Mishkan to Moses. So I'm gonna take you heavy into Midrash Tanchuma. Usually I like to give you a lot of snippets of things. Midrash Tanchuma, 11th century translation of extant Midrashim and put into a compilation, first translated by Buber's grandfather, Solomon Buber, is wonderful. So then they brought the Mishkan to Moses. Who's up? Ian, go ahead, give me that. The Tanchuma. Why?
Why is it stated so many times, according to all Yahweh commanded Moses? Because the Israelites criticized Moses at the time they strove to erect the tabernacle, but could not do so. Therefore, the Holy One said, since you have criticized him, I will attach my name to whatever I command him. Thus it is written, according to all Yahweh commanded Moses.
Right, so it says, it'll say 4 times or 5 times in the end of this chapter and the beginning of chapter 40, the repeating phrase, all that Adonai commanded Moses. So God is intimating, or the Midrash is intimating, that Moses gets some credit here. Because Moses was the conduit for this creation. Okay. And now this very long, and we're gonna read it little by little, Midrash, and seldom do I give the Midrash as it's translated. I usually, cut and paste. I'm giving you the whole thing, right? Jack, want to read a little bit of this Midrash? You're gonna go to your surrogate. I love that. All right. So go with this is from Pekudei 11. And this is really the question of, so Moses blessed them. Think about this. You're the master, teacher of all Israel. You're the leader. They bring you all the stuff you need and you bless them. Okay, maybe it's reasonable, maybe it's not. See what the Midrash makes of it. This is the rabbinic mind. Sarah, go ahead.
When at last they completed the work of the tabernacle, they sat waiting for the
Shekhinah, God's divine feminine indwelling,
to descend and hover over it. However, they were distressed because the Shekhinah failed to descend. What did they do then? They went to the wise-hearted men and said to them, why do you sit by idly? Set up the tabernacle and the Shekhinah will come to rest among us. They tried to make it stand, but did not know how. Whenever they thought they had assembled it, it would fall apart. They went to the Bezalel and Aholiab and said, come erect the tabernacle that you have constructed. Perhaps you will be worthy. They too tried to assemble it, but were not unable to do so. They began muttering and complaining, saying, see what the son of Amram did to us when he took our possessions for this tabernacle and made us assume this burden while promising us that the Holy One would descend from the heavenly sphere and would dwell within it. As is said, that I may dwell among them.
Right, so who's the son of Amram? Moses. Right? This, by the way, is an echo text because we hear this many times. What did you do? Take us out here in the wilderness to die? The Egyptians are coming fast. So this happens again and again, but the Midrash just creates this dialogue and this exchange. And it's really setting up. So the goal is that I may dwell among them. The problem is, we don't know how to put the damn thing together. Nobody knows how it works. Nobody, right? Who are B'Tzalel and Aholiab? Who are these two guys?
The architects.
They're the master artisans behind it. They know exactly how to make the copper laver. They know how to make the altar, but they don't know how to put it together. Well, nobody told me that, right? I don't know, right? The wise men, the wise-hearted men. Those are all the people who are in the Hebrew chacham lev. Those are the skilled artisans. They can't do it either. Yeah.
The question that's in my mind right now is, were the instructions for all of this supposed to be, divine, coming down from the divine, or was Moses kind of, I picture kind of like, a Mel Brooks movie or thinking like, I gotta keep it busy, maybe I can remember a few things, how to do the things. Whose idea was all of this?
It is the great question, right? So Moses said, what do you, so it could well be, I remember I was probably 9, 10, and I like to draw. I also sometimes like to try to put models together. I lost the instructions to this plane. And for the life of me, I couldn't build the plane model, right? So I think I made something else, but it wasn't a plane.
What I wanted to say is, I think it's similar to getting IKEA instructions when you get all the parts.
Yeah.
Instructions and nothing works.
Yeah, so it seems like maybe did they have the instructions? Maybe yes, maybe no. They were able to build the parts, but they weren't able to make it become a whole.
It's also, I'm thinking at creation, it was kind of chaos and they're separating parts and, separating light and dark and separating the waters.
Yes.
The sky and waters, and this is the separate parts.
This is the separate, so Lisa's onto something. How do you put something holy together? Or how do you put holy creation where God's presence will rest and dwell together? Maybe it is, as Harold Schulweis says, it is the art of distinction.
So they couldn't do the tabernacle, they would never reconstruct.
We talk about a lot of them, I'm
They
sorry.
could not reconstruct the tabernacle.
No. No.
But they could reconstruct the sacral vessels. They're still doing that today.
Yeah. So there are parts of this that they take, but the parts don't make the whole, or at least a part doesn't make the whole, I don't think. And who the heck wants to wear that linen vest and all the stuff, right? Some people do, some people do.
It's that.
Yeah.
It's a sacral vessel.
Yeah. So it says.
So, it does talk about how they didn't know how to put it together, but it seems like the way they told us, according to they told that according to the Midrash, is not so much that they couldn't put it together, but they were waiting for the Shekinah to come down. Like, I guess, they see the Shekinah.
Yeah, so like Parshat Shemini, where they have it all right, and it's all ready, and the Shekinah isn't come.
It sounds like a catch-22 there. They're waiting for the Shekinah to come down to get it together, but they can't get it together until.
Because the Shekinah comes down. That's beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
The origin of the stereotype Jews were fools.
First of all, I am highly offended by that because I can't do a thing with the tool. But I don't think so. I don't. Yeah.
So, Laura, is there a Shabbos on this one wrong now?
Yeah.
There is.
Now, there's one that's higher than the others. Is it a Shabbat? I don't know. It is in the middle.
So that speaks to me about God being the Shabbos to create the world or the universe, and the people being the Shabbos to create the vision.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna get there one second. You're gonna see how it all comes together.
I'm drawing my mind is drawing a parallel to the creation of the state of Israel. So in this case, they haven't waited long enough. they haven't waited until they're told to build it, and they try to build it, it doesn't work. And not my position, but imagine those who were against, Jews who were against the state of Israel could have had a similar idea about the creation of the state of Israel, and we're trying to do it on our own.
Yeah, and there were those Jews who did have that, right? I'm not gonna go there yet, but we could go there at the end. I wanna continue with the Midrash first. So keep going with the Midrash, right? So Steve, now we're getting a little more of the Midrash and we're going, right, and I agree with, the key point that Seth made. They were awaiting the Shekhinah to actualize it, to help it stand, to hold it together. Steve?
Why were they unable to erect it? Because of the fact that Moses was distressed, not having participated in the construction of the tabernacle. Why did that happen? The offerings were given by the Israelites, and the work was performed by Bezalel, Ohava, and the wise party. Because Moses was distressed, the Holy One, blessed be He, concealed the way to erect it from them, and that is why they were unable to do so. After they had tried in every way to do so, and still were unable to set it up, all the Israelites approached Moses, saying, Moses, our master, everything you told us we have done, and everything you asked us to bring and to give, we have given. Behold, all the work of the tabernacle, perhaps we have overlooked something, or perhaps something else should be added to what you told us. See, everything is here. And they brought the tabernacle into Moses, and Moses built it down.
Right, so what are they saying? They're saying very nicely, maybe you forgot something. Right? Was there something that you didn't tell us? Was there a little thing? So they're trying to just draw it out of Moses, and at this point, being very nice. Mark, go ahead, give us a little more.
They said to him, did you not tell us to do such and such? He replied, yes, indeed. And so they pointed to everything that had been done. They said, if that is so, why does it not stand? We tried to have the Zal or
Oholiab,
and the wise hearted erected, but they weren't able to do so.
Right, so they're basically saying to Moses, we did just as Adonai commanded. You got it? Come on. So Moses now is looked to by the entire peoplehood to make the Mishkan one. So keep going, Mark.
Moses was troubled by all this until the Holy One, blessed be He, told him, Moses, because you were unhappy over the fact that you did not share in the work of the building of the tabernacle, these wise men were not able to erect it. Now Israel will know that if you do not erect it, it will never be set up. Have I not written previously that it will be done by you, as it is said? And Moses set up the tabernacle.
So clearly God's reading ahead. But most importantly, Moses gets the credit in chapter 40, which I didn't give you, right? It's the laundry list, but spelled out. This goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And it says, and Moses set up the tabernacle. Well, how did the rabbis of the 11th century, or maybe the 8th or 9th century, respond to that? Moses replied, go ahead, Jeff.
Moses replied, Master of the universe, I do not know how to set up either. God said that you apply yourself to it, and it will stand up of itself. My head concerning you that you will raise it, as is said. And then it came to pass in the first month of the second year, the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was set up. Who finally set it up? Moses. As it is said, Moses set up the tabernacle.
Right, so what do? They're using the text as proof text that Moses has to set it up. But there very much is a catch-22 here. Because Moses can't set it up.
Exactly.
What is God saying? What does God say to him? Which is again, I think, classic and so beautiful. Apply yourself to it, or in the Hebrew, just try, and it will stand on its own.
I think it's all done for a purpose. If Moses was able to do it, he would take over what the God, he would become God. So this is exactly a thing that say, you know, you people have to discover on your own, have to do on your own, otherwise, you know, what am I doing here?
Right, so Moses should not be the surrogate and cannot become, right, the source of people's adoration. So maybe that's why he can't do it either.
But there is a phrase just after the words that you finished reading, and that is, for I have written concerning you that you will raise it. So it's God making a promise, and which will be fulfilled, because it is God's promise.
And how does it happen that Moses raises it? How does it happen that the tabernacle becomes one? Just try. It will stand all on its own.
Words are interesting, and it came to pass, you don't know what Moses did, or people.
Right.
It came to pass.
Yeah, the word in Hebrew is one word, Vayehi. And so it was, or so it came to be. Vayehi. Interestingly, right, what changed? Well, remember that the same root, the word of Vayehi and Adonai are the same root.
So I might be getting ahead or whatever, but I think, at least for me, during the week, this whole world was falling apart. It's like, it's all in pieces. And you go through the week and you're trying to put everything together and you're trying to make it all work. And it's really hard. And I think for us, especially us, to put it together. And then you come to Shabbat as a group. And it's our day of rest to look back and say, what were we able to accomplish?
Yeah.
What were we able to do?
Yeah.
So
No, I love that. I love the Shabbat nuance, and I think it's gonna really connect to our drops for sure. So in a way, coming together is trying to put together the tabernacle. Like,
Let's just say, it doesn't say that Moses figured it out. It just says that Moses did it.
yeah,
Now, look, some of that is, it had to be that way, as most God had a baby.
yeah.
He says, but maybe there's a sense of like the kind of the inscrutability or the unknowability of the whole.
And even in chapter 40, Mike, just to underscore, I could have given this yet, you don't need to. So God says, here's where all the stuff goes, here's what happens, and then it says, Vaya'as Moshe kekol asher tziva Adonai oto kain asa. The exact same words that Moses used, or that we use in chapter 39, kain asu, so they did. So the formula here is, and Moses did all that Adonai commanded, so he did. It doesn't say, so we put it together. It does not say that, right? Yeah, and there.
Moses, who could either appear to do it or actually do it.
Yeah.
Because again, the people had lost confidence, he still had to lead them a long way. And so God realized he needed to go with confidence. Right?
Yeah, so maybe the Holy One says, I need this guy, I need people to buy into this, right? There's a buy-in, right? Maybe.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's like when he keeps remaking, it's symbolic. He doesn't make it each time, but it's like things are always falling apart. And we're always trying to fix them. We're always, like you say, struggling to get things whole. But
yes.
they're always falling.
Yeah, always falling apart or trying to fix it. Zebi's gonna read something in a minute that's gonna underscore it. Harry and then Hall.
They had the son of John.
No, Zebi, hold on a second, but not yet. Right.
So
Harry, Harley, and then Zebi.
Just a question about the Talmud.
Yeah.
Why was Moses distressed?
Yeah, so interestingly, the Midrash reads in. Think about this, and you know the answer. The Midrash always reads in Midrash Rabbah, the Talmud, and certainly Tanhuma reads in to how frustrating it is to be a spiritual leader. Because it's written by them.
Yeah. But he's distressed at something specific, which sounds not like the modest Moses. He's distressed that he didn't get to participate in it.
Yeah, but think of how many times. Yeah, Moses is distressed that he didn't get to be Kohen Gadol. Moses is distressed that he doesn't get to offer the sacrifice. Moses is distressed all the time, according to the Midrash.
So this is your rabbinate? Is that what you're saying?
Is my rabbinate? No, I'm not distressed at all. I would much rather have you do it than me. That would be a pleasure, right? But now, so Harley, go ahead. Save us.
And so building up on what Harry asked, because Is that what Tanhuma was, the problem that Tanhuma was trying to solve? Was the dilemma that is faced spiritual leaders?
No, I don't think so.
So
I
then
think-
what problem is Tanhuma trying to solve by this piece?
I think Tanhuma is trying to say, or trying to answer the question, what makes the tabernacle stand? That's the question here, which is part of our question. So what makes the tabernacle stand? Because I think they do respond. All right, 1 second, Zebby. Michael, Paris in the house.
Yeah, I think that Tanhuma, as many of the commentators, has a vested interest in the Mishkan. The Mishkan, of course, is a community project. The parallel between the creation was God made creation for man, and now man makes a space for God. Well, yes, but in a sense, man is making a space for man around God, which isn't quite the same. So what we're talking about is, we're talking about Judaism, we're talking about Torah, we're talking about how we're going to maintain this in the people. That's what it's all about, I think.
So what makes the Mishkan stand means more than a physical building, quite clearly. It's about substitute the word Mishkan for sacred community. Now, Zebi, before we go anybody else, read us the Rabbi Chia, the son of Joseph.
The son of Joseph stated, throughout the 7 days of dedication, Moses took it apart and assembled twice each day, as is indicated in those verses by the word, set it up, and it was erected. Hananiah held that he did so 3 times each day, and scripture stands, and Moses saw all the work done. He does not say all the work of the tabernacle, but rather all the work. For the work of all the work of the tabernacle is equal to the work of creation.
What are they trying to tell us? Fascinating and very cool. What are they saying? First of all, they're saying there are 7 days of the dedication, right? Which we're going to see in a few chapters. 7 days of dedication, 7 days of creation. And what are they implying? Through Moses, right? Preserved. What are they implying here?
Assembled it and disassembled it twice each.
Right, so it took a lot of practice, right? People needed to buy in. They needed to know Moses could do this. But what is Moses doing, right? What is he assembling, and what is he hoping to assemble, right? Steve's comment is most apt. The world. Think about where they are. They're in the middle of nowhere, right? Who knows if they're being held together as a tightly knit unit? Wasn't so long ago they made the calf. There's a lot of dissension. The troublemakers were sort of done away with. And now they have this focus, this sacred structure. Has to be built. What are they building by building this sacred structure? This Mishkan.
And he was a man that spoke with a lisp, that didn't even want to talk. He was so,
Yeah, most right, and so you could say, he was not exactly Charlton Heston kind of Moses, right? He was more like, I don't know, Elmer Fudd-esque, right? So this is a guy. He's trying to bring all of the people's contributions and create that centerpiece, which is much more than just the feather. I'm gonna go with Shayna and then Clarence.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle that the Mishkan stands. God's doing it. At the end of the day, if God's not involved, it doesn't get done. And Moses is always like, wait, God, just throw my staff. Wait, God, just do what? Huh? And when you said just try, Rabbi Jeff, like it just hit me so hard. I'm over here in tears. Like, just try, because it's going to be me at the end of the day. And if you're seeking me, if you're talking to me, if you're in communication, and Moses is our point guy. Moses is the most humble man. He is seeking God in all things. So he's the one who's able to bring everyone's best efforts together. But everyone will know, because you, Moses, you know that it's me. Everyone will know at the end of the day that this is a miracle that I'm performing in your midst, and that
Yeah.
I'm the one that's keeping it going.
So beautiful. Thank that somebody of faith steps up. Thank you. So what doesn't God say to Moses? Just do it. No. Just try. Just try. Aspire. Reach. Right?
So, God is I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
So what is intent? Is intent to limit Moses? To limit Moses' power? What is intent when he makes his interpretation?
I think he's saying it's not easy to make the Mishkan stand. You gotta really practice. Even Moses.
I know, but something specific about Moses. So.
And Moses saw all the work, right? So that's the proof text.
Not say all the work of the tabernacle.
Right, because what he's implying is, it's not just the tabernacle that he saw. He saw the community, the big picture, what they had done. And thus he blessed them. He got a godly response. Clarence, and then I'll go to, Shannon, is your hand still raising? You're good. What you said is perfect, by the way. Clarence.
Just on this question, and specifically focus on the words that you just asked. I interpret around all the work, especially all the words, all the work of the tabernacle as this is the ability of all kings to do all the work, but you can't do all the work of the tabernacle. That requires God. Of the tabernacle, that praise. And that also then allows all things to realize that God again exists and is needed.
Right. So what is the tabernacle doing? It's resurrecting a holy presence in the people's midst. What does creation do? Creation does the same thing. It doesn't resurrect, but it makes manifest. Right? What's the end of creation? The end of creation is the beginning of the Kiddush every Shabbat. Vayichlol hashamayim. The heaven and earth were finished. On the seventh day, God finished the work that he had been doing, or the Holy One had been doing. And God stopped the work on the seventh day, and God blessed the seventh day, making it holy. Because on it, God ceased from all the work of creation, work of the tabernacle. Such is the so this is the parallel to somehow by creating this edifice, this thing, we are renewing creation. Look at my teacher, Everett Fox, right? Who's up? Jane. Oh, do Gary and then Jane. So Gary, you go at the end.
At the end of the passage describing the erection of the tabernacle, there is a key parallel. So Moses finished the work, and God had finished the work. This suggests what we find in many pulpits. Human building, especially of sanctuaries, but not exclusively, is to be viewed as an act of imitating God. The Israelites have composed this book chronicling their founding as a people linked up with God's scheme in recreating the world.
So somehow, by building this thing, they are recreating their world. Which is it's a little chaotic, it's a little bit in disarray. And this is a project, as any building project, it brings people together for a higher, greater purpose. Michelle, then Dave.
Bondage, they have to sort of recreate.
Yeah, what did they build in bondage, by the way? Pharaoh stuff, right? A tribute to the guy who thought he was a god. Now we're doing something different, Dick, and that's it.
So you had to have God involved, otherwise you have the power of bad situation.
Yeah. So this is, on the contrary, right? They're not building up, they're building out.
You know what's interesting? That Israel's not building another temple.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, there's this, they will not have.
They're holding back.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in a traditional siddur, by the way, the end of the Amidah, after you do Elohim and sort of the silent prayer, Mars prayer, you say two lines, Sheyibnei Beit Hamikdash. May it be your will that the temple will be rebuilt speedily in our own day. It is not in the Reform prayer book, let me say. But there are at least 2 yeshivot in Jerusalem that train young men on how to make the sacrifice.
Also by the butcher. How to sacrifice.
What's that? How to sacrifice? Yeah, that was it.
But they aren't excavating and looking for the, the pieces.
Yeah.
They're not stopping,
Yeah,
so there is.
yeah.
I think that they think it's gonna be cataclysmic.
Gonna be,
The cataclysm?
oh, yeah.
Has ever tried to rebuild this temple,
Yeah.
something powerful.
Yeah.
Cataclysmic.
Cataclysmic, yeah.
With the parallel to creation, why doesn't it say anywhere, and it was good? Is it because it wasn't built?
So let's answer that question, because it's great. Because in creation, if this is really a parallel, what a brilliant question, right? So in creation, it says, right? Vayar Elohim, and God saw, Tov, Ki Tov. It was good. It doesn't say that with the building of the tabernacle any place. Why? It looked beautiful. Let's see. We're gonna go to the draft. It's gonna help us answer. I'm gonna start with Gary, then I'm gonna go with maybe Karen Ryder. Is that okay? Start with Gary.
All done in erecting the Mishkan, covered the fires, and Moses saw by all the tasks, and behold, the humility they had done, and he blessed them.
Right, so the reason, it's exactly the reason that Lisa just asked, why Rabbi Shai held the chair of Machon Hadar, modern Orthodox yeshiva in the city, is using, those are the words in creation, Vayar Elohim v'hinei tov me'od. So those are the key words. Go ahead.
You can't agree with the links to the creation story are unmistakable. And God saw Vayar that all that God had done, behold, he made it good. In one case, God looks and sees, while in the other, Moses does. Both cases, everything is completed just as God wants. There seems to be a deep connection between God's creation and the Israelites' construction and completion of the Mishkan. But just what is it, and what is it intended to suggest? Immediately after God looks and sees the world was good, Genesis tells us that the heaven and the earth were finished.
By Yahuwah.
Exodus says that all the work in the tabernacle and the meetings was finished.
By Techa.
God blessed Adarek, seventh day. After Moses sees that the Mishkan has been built according to plan, hear that Moses blessed Israel.
Right, so lots of connections, lots of ways to draw parallel. God putting together creation, 7 days, 7 days of dedication, Moses putting together the tabernacle. One more paragraph, yeah.
I believe because the Torah wants us to know that God's creation of the world, Israel's construction of the line on a highly significant measure. One level, the implication of coupling, intended for the Mishkan to serve as a microcosm, world in miniature. Bible scholar John Levinson helpfully draws out the relationship. Theological substance of the two similar refrains, and God saw that it was good, and just as Yahweh had commanded, is pointed correspondence. But when Mishkan in the world result from perfect realization of God's law.
Right, so this is done just as God commanded. So maybe, Lisa, it doesn't say, and it was good, but rather just as God commanded, to say, this was according to plan. Of course, the problem, Karen, pick it up, is.
Except that in reality, the world as we find it falls short of God's hopes and expectations. Instead of a world in which human dignity is real, we live in a world in which barbarism and cruelty all too often rule the day, in which unspeakable suffering pervades every corner of the globe. One way to think about Torah is as a story of divine disillusionment and disappointment. The best laid plans of God often go awry. In a world overrun by chaos, the Mishkan, I like to suggest, is intended to serve as one place in which everything unfolds according to divine plan. Amid the world's brokenness, then, there is one place, at least, in which God is really present. It is as if God says to Moses, I made you a place to live, now you make one for me.
But of course, the problem with that, hold on a second, the problem with that would be, all right, so God's there. but no place else. You gotta come here. That may not be the ultimate motivation for building the Mishkan. Go ahead, Karen.
But Judaism could never rest content with one small pocket of order and goodness in a world otherwise utterly adrift. If the correspondence between the Mishkan and the world is meant to suggest that the Mishkan is supposed to be a miniature world, it is equally supposed to remind us that the world is intended to be a very large tabernacle, a place in which God's presence is felt and God's dream for the world fulfilled. Jewish theology often wrestles with the tragic sense that although God brought the world into being, it has run so totally amok that God's presence seems to be in exile. In a world filled with callousness and inhumanity, so enamored of idols both insipid and insidious, where is there any room for God? In a world so permeated by selfishness and indifference, where can the God who shatters our indifference and commands us to love the stranger dwell?
Right, so this, what is the purpose of building the Mishkan? Rabbi Shai-Held is giving us sort of a deeper understanding and a much more wide-scoping understanding. Who said it? Who said the Mishkan? You said it, Kat, right? Right. So as Rabbi Shiffman intimated, and I think is right, and he's quoting. He's quoting an 18th century rabbi, I can't remember, maybe Samson Raphael Hirsch, but I think somebody else, that what we're building is the Mishkan inside us. But if it's only inside us, that's not good enough. Elaine, finish it up.
As we read the 13 chapters in Exodus about the construction of the Mishkan, we are challenged to ask, how can I live my life in a way that makes space for God? For us, what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote about prayer applies to life as a whole. God is in exile. The world is corrupt. The universe itself is not at home. To pray means to bring God back into the world. To pray means to expand God's presence, to make God imminent, to make God present. His being imminent in the world depends upon us. Challenge before us is to transform the idea that the world is a temple, a home for God's presence, from a pretty but potentially fatal notion into a tangible reality, into our life project. The construction of the Mishkan still amazing.
So maybe it doesn't say, and it was good, because it's not done. Because we're still building it. Because the Mishkan was not, as Jane said towards the beginning, about a building project that was really physical. Yes, of course it was physical. We needed buy-in. We needed some sense that people were going to say, all right, most can do it. We're following. We feel all united through this project, this community. Yes, but you're building much more. You're trying to ask the question, right? I can see Arnie asking this question, by the way. How can I live my life in a way that makes space for God? That's what it's about. It's about making the Mishkan through the lives we live. Yeah.
It strikes me too, though, that, they're preparing to go to Israel and build the temple and everything else. But really, this passage is preparing us for the future of the diaspora too.
Yeah, because, because we're always wondering.
And we need to have spirituality and community wherever we get it done.
And you could even say, to just a little connection to what Philip said, I would say, and I'm quoting Heschel actually in his book Israel an Echo of Eternity, written in 1967-68, right after he went to Israel after the 6-Day War and went to Jerusalem. Israel, he says Israel is a personal struggle, one in which man cannot answer vicariously. The fact of the state of Israel's being means it is ever becoming. Israel is not what it's gonna be or should be, not all it can be. So we're still building God's presence in a place there, just as we are here. Jack.
Everybody should participate in this. And so what I don't accept here is that, let's say the whole group of Jews who, I'm not gonna mention, think that they are the best, that they know what to do, and that the only other ones are a lower thing. So how is that possible, that in a situation where Israel and the Jews, based on exactly how we all have to be part of the whole.
Of this construction project, yeah, and you know what? I think that this week's portion makes clear, nobody has the answer. Nobody has the answer, so there's a humility in life about that, right? Nobody has the answer. I want to give you, it's a cool text, and then we'll talk a little more about what we're doing to build the Mishkan in our midst. But this is Rabbi Lauren Grable Herman, who is the rabbi where Mordechai Kaplan, the founding father of Reconstructionist Judaism in the city, was the rabbi. And this was a big anniversary, 100th anniversary at their place. And at the beginning of it, we don't need to read the whole thing. You know what, I'm gonna call somebody online. Michael, you feel like reading? Go to Michael's reading a midrash, some of the midrash. So Michael, go from like our ancestors. It's the 4th paragraph, because the beginning of it just sets up, you know, exactly what we know, that creation, right? You know, it's not a coincidence. Moses is trying to communicate an important message that we have built. What we have built is as grand and amazing, as important as creation itself. Our Mishkan was not just going to be a place to worship, it is a microcosm of the world we wish to create. Wow. Go ahead, Mike.
Like our ancestors, we are wandering in a seemingly endless and unforgiving wilderness. I share this teaching because I believe, clearly like the ancestors who carefully wrote and connected all the parts of the Torah, that one of the most vital and most powerful and most hopeful things we can do to create the world we want to see is to build our Mishkan, our sacred community. Now, I imagine some of you are scratching your heads right now. If I'm talking about the world we want to see, shouldn't I be talking about where to give tzedakah, or the imperative of lowering our carbon footprint, or welcoming refugees? Of course, all those things and more are critically important. But here's the thing. They are part of the same whole of building sacred community. For sacred community, if done right, is where we get the nourishment to do those very things and be sustained for the long term. It's where we get the koach, the strength to look despair straight in the eye and cast it aside and keep going again and again. Sacred community is where we experience the sense of shlemut, wholeness, that holds us when we are struggling and helps us to feel more alive, present, and courageous. As we celebrate our 100th anniversary, alongside the commitments to building a world of responsibility, questioning, justice, and radical welcome, let's lift up and claim the spirit of SAG's innovative, daring, and radical history. Let's be bold and dream big as we envision the next 100 years. Let's ask hard questions about the changing realities of contemporary Jewish life. Let's strengthen our practice of a joyful and thoughtful Judaism that impacts us, and even more importantly, for the present and future children of SAG, who will shape the future of Judaism and the broader world. All the while, let us hold in our hearts the lesson Moses taught our ancestors while they were wandering in the desert. That sacred community has incredible power and potency. It is a microcosm of creation where we build the world we wish to see every single day. So let's get to work.
Yeah, just try, right? Yeah, so we can stop the share, even though it was her Rosh Hashanah sermon, this rabbi a couple years ago. So why do I think this is so compelling? The Mishkan, right? So what's the Mishkan for us? The Mishkan is the community we're building. not for the sake of the building. It says, Vayihi hamishkan echad, and so the tabernacle was one. What does that mean? The Mishkan becomes one, as I said last night at services, when you recognize all the different contributions that people make, and all the questions they bring, all the struggles they bring, all the moments, so all of it makes the Mishkan. All of it. Sometimes, you know, as a spiritual leader, the thing that you're not sure you need, but you take it because it's somebody's heartfelt contribution. Michael Feynman.
Yeah, so actually what Shai Held says is not quite right. He says, because the universe is corrupt. No, the universe is not corrupt. Humanity is corrupt. We've got to create a sacred community, bring people together, give a meaning, bring God into our lives. That's not the universe which is corrupt. The universe was good. The world was good. Man wasn't good. And he's still trying to be good.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully said. I will let Shai Held know to make that emendation.
It's, everyone's not just contributing a thing or a skill to the Michigan, they're contributing their entire being, and that's what.
Yeah, you're bringing, right? So, you know, you're bringing your heart, is what you're bringing, right? You're bringing your hopes, right? That's what you're bringing. It's so, and I would agree. You know, God didn't flood the world. You know, Hamas, you know, the world was filled with Hamas, with, you know, lawlessness and violence, and that's not what this says. But it does say sometimes the world feels like it's falling apart. In fact, most days. So what do we do about it, is the question. Professor Wiesel said that the purpose of Judaism is to make you a holy human being. He didn't say a holy Jew. It's to make you more holy so that you can take what you have and go out there into the world. My friend Billy and I wrote a program for Camp Coleman a lot of years ago, 40 almost. And in the second summer, it was all about writing ritual. It was called Wanderings. And the program we wrote about Shabbat, Steve, was called the Holiness Recycling Center, or Holiness Recycling Factory. And we took each Shabbat item and showed how that gave you a value to go out and take into the world to bring holiness into your life every day. So I agree with you, you know, with what you said. Again, we don't have the answers, but we certainly have the questions. And if you can bring the questions to the table, as the rabbis of Pirkei Avot taught, when two sit and words of Torah pass between them, and you can add questions, concerns, struggles, you know, discoveries, the rabbis end the sentence, that's where God's presence dwells. So we're making a Mishkan every week. Great to see everybody. Freddie, it's good to see you. Everything good? You feeling good? Everything good? It's my
Hey, Jeff.
All right. Love you.
Hey, Jeff. Shabbat Shalom. Great job, Jeff. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thanks, Jeff.
I always
Super.
know I'm doing until they tell me great job. Shabbat Shalom, guys. Great to see you, chat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Happy birthday. Shabbat Shalom, guys.
Shabbat
Thank
Shalom.
you, Shane.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thanks, Jude. Take care, Ellen.